Today, a true crime mystery. What happened to Adea Shabani? Just days before her birthday, the 25-year-old aspiring actress disappeared from her Hollywood home, leaving behind very few clues and sending her family and community into panic. The full story has never been told. Now, one team has set out to uncover the truth behind this mystery, and they're choosing to publicize their investigation in real time, even if it risks their lives. Joining me now is journalist and podcast host Neil Strauss and private investigator Jayden Brant. Jayden was hired by the Shabani family. Neil is a well-known writer for the New York Times and Rolling Stone. I thank you both for being here. Neil, I mean, journalists get threats, but you've had threats against your life. Have you ever thought this might not be the best move? Maybe we should back up a tiny bit?
I've definitely been threatened before. And I guess my first response was fear, because I have a 4-year-old. The second response was regret. But then you realize if someone is threatening you, it's most often coming from a position of weakness.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was probably close to the truth, because otherwise, why would they be trying to stop me?
Jayden, what were you and the family facing as you tried to uncover what had happened to their daughter? Especially because there weren't a lot of clues at the beginning of Adea's case.
Right, so yeah, I think as in all missing persons cases, one of the challenges initially is with Adea being an adult, there's limited resources that the local police departments can expend to handle these cases. So reports are taken, but generally as an adult, they're taken, as a voluntary missing, and they're kind of categorized that way. So a lot of times the families look to us as private investigators to try to supplement that investigation. And so we often try to determine whether or not they were voluntary or involuntary. If we start to see that there may be foul play involved, we try to develop that evidence and get that to the local police department so that they can move the case status to something where they can get more resources.
And what's interesting, because I learned it during this is really, like, I normally write about entertainment for Rolling Stone.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't know until I did this that there are 3,900 people. So if you go to the LAPD, the LA Police website, it says 3,900 people go missing every year. So if you have a loved one who goes missing, it says they'll probably show up. If they don't show up, a police officer will take a report, but they can't take it that seriously because it's not proven as a homicide. Right. They said if you still can't find them, you should hire a private investigator.
Well, they tell you to.
They tell you that on their website. This is not like, they literally say that on their website. It's shocking. And then they said if you can't afford a private investigator, because guys like Jayden are expensive probably, then you should go to the Salvation Army. It says that on their website.
The Salvation Army?
Yeah, because I guess they have some kind of service, volunteer service. But that's the procedure because so many people go missing. And because there's no body, they can't say it's a homicide.
I never knew the Salvation Army deputized private investigators, but I always supported them. I thought they were a great group, but it just shows, I get the larger point.
Right.
In big cities, the police can't keep up.
Exactly.
And I know we don't solve probably half the murders.
Right.
So it's probably worth hiring someone early on. So here you are, you're hired, you're professional. You start to develop the case a little bit. How are you able to uncover new leads?
Well, I think initially what we do is try to get out and hit everything as fast as we can because it's very time sensitive. So we start talking to friends, family, anyone that's involved in their life to try and figure out and try to piece together kind of what their life looked like at the time that they disappeared. Try to parse through that and try to find that clue or that thread that we can pull to give us a direction to go.
Because people, I can't stress this enough, because as I'm doing more, I'm seeing the same mistakes happen over and over as a pattern, which is you want to wait for them to show up, and then you want to wait for the police to do their work, and maybe by that time a week or 2 weeks have passed, and all the security footage has started to expire. So you miss maybe that the bus that was driving by, because their cameras roll over every 24 hours. That maybe convenience store, and maybe that expires after a month. And you start to lose these pieces of information, and you may never know what happened if you don't move fast.
So you guys got onto it pretty quickly. How did you begin to tease out what was happening in Adea's life right before she disappeared?
Yeah, I think the first steps were, you talk to everybody in her life, her friends of friends. You go through your computer, her phone, iCloud, all that data, and you can start to really piece together like an exact series of steps until she goes off the grid.
So at the beginning of this investigation, Neil and Jayden had very little to work with. They retraced Adea's last steps and digital activity. I'm going to walk you through what they found. On February 23rd, 2018, she actually leaves the apartment and she goes to her local favorite coffee shop, right? And these are all little pieces they're putting together. So we'll start off at the very beginning. The first clue, coffee shop. It's called Rise and Grind. It was a pretty much of a habit. She would go there.
Yeah, it was on the corner from her apartment.
And you knew she was there.
Yes.
Okay, so this is again February 23rd. Now let's go forward a couple hours. It's now 12:21 that day. YouTube history data shows her listening to music. So now they can place her. At least someone's using her device if she's not, right? Plays the last song at around 12:48, which is 20 minutes later, right? Typical for us to do that, listen for a couple of minutes, right? Right after that, 2 minutes later, was the last time her phone was used that afternoon. And then fast forward 12 hours later, right? The computer is powered on from inside of her home. Now this is more than 12 hours after her phone activity stopped. And she was a pretty frequent social media user. So Jayden, why is this significant?
Well, I mean, that tells us that, based on her phone usage, I mean, she was always on her phone. That tells us that it may not have been her that was using the computer that night. That coupled with the fact that when LAPD first went to her apartment, her door was left unlocked.
It was unlocked.
Correct.
All right, so let's go to that point. Now, you also, again, the police are reporting this, so now we have pretty good evidence. Again, later in that same day, a few hours later, but now it's daytime. Front door's unlocked, no signs of a struggle. And this is the crazy thing. We'll have a seat here. The last text was sent around that period, and it's asking, where are the red candles? That's the clue. Where are the red candles? So, Neil, who was that text sent to?
She was in an acting school. She sent that text to a friend from acting school saying, yeah, do you know where I can get red candles? And at the time, that was one of the first kind of mysteries and clues.
All right, so keep that in your mind, red candles. You did some homework on people around her, a lot of personal interviews. Who stands out? Who caught your attention?
Well, so after talking to friends, family, other students at the acting school, one name, it just kept coming up, and that was Chris Spots. He was an on-again, off-again boyfriend, fellow student at the acting school, and we were getting a lot of information about him, a lot of misinformation about him, and we knew that he was somebody that we needed to talk to.
All right, well, up next, the investigation proved to be far from easy, and startling discoveries would place Neil and Jayden in the web of lies. Don't go away.
Hey, just wanted to give you an update. Just got a call from Angel. He just got a call that came in on his cell phone. Basically, he got a call from a guy, anonymous, didn't leave a name, a block number, saying that he saw Adea and she was being put into the bed of a pickup truck out in front of her apartment. He said that she was out of it. The implication was maybe drugged. And then the truck took off and drove southbound toward Hollywood Boulevard. He gives us a description of the truck, and he even has the plate number.
We're back with journalist Neil Strauss and private investigator Jayden Brant, who have been on the hunt to figure out what happened to 25-year-old aspiring actress Adea Shabani. After conducting several interviews, they got tips like the ones you just heard, and they began coming in these tips. So, Neil, that's a message that Jayden sent to you. What were your thoughts as you began processing? It's a blockbuster idea.
Yeah, I mean, your first thoughts when you hear this message is there are no leads, no real suspects yet, and all of a sudden, there's the entire case and what happened being delivered right there. So I thought, we got it. This is it. But that turned out not to be the case.
So who owned that truck, Jayden?
Well, so yeah, that was a big tip. So we ran the license plate, and we
By the way,
actually
does
found
law enforcement do that for you? Can you do that outside of law enforcement?
no, private investigators have access to that type of information.
Okay.
Licensed investigators do, yes.
Okay.
So we ran the plate, and we found that it came back to Chris Spots, who was, again, the on and off again boyfriend, the acting student. We got an address off of that registration, ended up not being the address, and we started looking into some other possible addresses where he may be, and really the hunt was on at that point.
Can you give us a little bit of background on Adea? Who was he? What was she doing? And her relationship with Chris Spots?
Yeah, I think it's really important to mention because Adea is born in Macedonia. She's Albanian, and really is one of those people who just always had that special quality about her. You can even find early videos of her maybe dancing on YouTube. She is a star. She just radiates. She's on stage. She always knew she was too big for the town she was born in. Mm-hmm. So so many people with a dream, she wanted to come to LA and be an actress and a star. But unlike many of those people, she really wanted to work at it, right? She went to the Stella Adler Academy of Acting, which is one of the most prestigious and serious acting schools. And that's where she met Chris Spots. He's a couple years older, a senior student.
He's an actor too.
He's an actor too.
Huh.
Yeah, right.
So they're dating.
So yeah, they do a scene together, they're rehearsing back at her apartment, and they start dating.
Got it. So now this is, this intrigue gets a little thicker.
Yeah.
So the next tip that came in that sort of got you moving in the right direction was
There's
what?
probably one more piece of backstory I should give you.
Please.
He has a fiancée.
He's a fiancé.
He has a fiancée. So we discovered that he had a fiancée.
All right, so what's your next move now? You've got a tip that his license plate, his truck was in front of her house. Someone just said that she was carted out on it. You know that they were dating, but he's got a fiancée, so that complicates issues. Now where do you go?
Well, at this point, I wanted to investigate everything I could about Chris Spots, but at the same time, here's the thing you learn from journalism and writing, is you can't trust anything, most things you read, and most things you hear unless they're firsthand. So this tip came from an anonymous tipster to one of Adea's friends who was running the tip line, to Jayden, to me. So before I just take this at face value, I wanted to go find this person. So I found out who they were. I waited outside their apartment. They walked outside. I told them what I was doing. I said, could I talk to you? They were a little cagey. They agreed to do anonymously. They pulled me into a parking garage, which I probably shouldn't have done if I was smarter. They pulled me into the parking garage and they said a completely different story. They said that Adea wasn't drugged. She wasn't forced into the truck, but she was being taken out of the apartment in the bed of a truck, hiding from somebody else.
Oh.
And so that's when all of a sudden, by the way, every news report you read will say Adea was drugged and put in the back of the truck, and that's not what happened.
It just reinforces how misleading much of what we read is these days. But this is actually legitimate journalists writing the wrong thing.
Right.
So if I can just talk a little time about a medical observation I made about a lot of these true crime shows, this thing called false memory syndrome, and it's a condition where a person centers their memory around a significant experience, an emotional experience but the experience happens to be false. It never happened.
Yeah, and I studied this for the podcast because I was fascinated because here's what happened. The tipster's tip was also wrong because Jayden got a hold of footage.
But I'm sorry, what you just told me was a clarification. It was wrong too?
That was wrong too. That's what's crazy about this. That's why these things are so hard to investigate. But it's fascinating to just dig in and get to the truth.
So he had false memory.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how that worked because I became fascinated by it because this person was sure he saw Adea in the truck. What happened is that had happened a few days earlier, and he conflated the two events. So I went to the University of Kelowna just to kind of research this, and they're doing studies on false memory. So what I used to think, right, is that I thought just your memory is just a recording device in your unconscious mind. That's what I thought it was. I didn't know. I thought they're all stored, but that's not what happens. It's like every time you access a memory, the neurology kind of changes. So they're doing a study. They're getting college students, who were never arrested, never had problems with the police. They were convincing them over the course of 3 interviews, making them remember something that wasn't true, which is that they had been arrested by the police and had a fight. They were implanting false memories over the course of 3, maybe hour-long interviews, and everybody was going for it.
Oh my goodness.
It just changed the way I think about everything.
Well, of course, because now you do these interviews,
Yeah.
and if you keep asking enough questions the right way, you could purposely convince people that they're guilty or not.
And it gets locked in. And they did studies too. If you ask somebody, at what speed was the car going during the accident, they'll say 1 speed. If you say how fast was the car speeding during the accident, they'll say a faster speed.
Yeah. Be careful, guys. Now that you understand how this works, people can manipulate your mind.
And that'll save a lot of relationships because both memories are true to you. It may not be what happened.
All right, so Chris was, I know, not as easy to access Jayden early in this investigation. When police finally did catch up to him, what was he saying?
Well, Chris was not easy to get in contact with at this time. He was telling all kinds of different stories. He had told some friends that him and Adea had gotten in an argument, they had broken up, and he had left the apartment. He told another group of friends that he took her up to Magic Mountain and dropped her off after an argument. He actually told his attorney that as well, and that was a statement that was given to us. And Adea communicated to her friends that he had told her that they were going on a trip because his uncle had died and they were going to a funeral up in Northern California. So he had proved to be pretty hard to get in contact with. He was bouncing between hotels in Los Angeles and between a family home in Colorado as well.
So I'm just putting this together myself. First off, This issue at the funeral, is that what the red candles were about?
Yeah, so good job, by the way. I was going to point that out. Yeah, the red candles were for the funeral of Chris's uncle. So she wanted them for the funeral.
So she thought she was going to a funeral.
Exactly.
And then this false memory issue, I'm just caught up on this. So we have one person falsely saying that an eyewitness saw her being pulled out when she was drugged. The person who got to, the primary witness, said, no, that's not what happened. She was put into the back to hide.
And then the videotape.
The videotape shows the truth.
The truth, which is she is leaving very amicably with her boyfriend, getting the passenger seat of his car with a suitcase. And you don't take a suitcase to Magic Mountain because it's only an hour away from LA.
Right, so she thought she was going somewhere.
Right.
And she was looking for red candles.
Right.
All right. Jayden and Neil were able to uncover deleted footage from Adea's iCloud account. Take a look.
I'm not recording anymore.
Beat
Get
me.
out of my truck.
You have beat me up.
Get out of my truck.
You have beat me up. You've taken my Rolex. You took my Rolex. You took my Rolex. You beat me up. Everything hurts.
Just get out of my truck.
I'm not getting out till I get my Rolex.
I'll go upstairs and get your Rolex then. I'll go upstairs and get your Rolex. It's on the same place you left it. Please get out of my truck.
You have my Rolex and my keys and my iPhone.
No.
My second iPhone.
I don't have
Yes, you have it. Yes, even my Find My iPhone shows me the address of your place.
Do you think I have it in my house? Show me it. Show me. Open up your iPhone, please. Let's look for your iPhone. Open up your iPhone. Let's see what's
The
up.
battery's dead.
You just said when you open up your phone.
Battery's dead. I'm gonna call the police.
Up next, the search for Adea intensifies. Investigators get a lead of where she might be, but will she still be alive? Plus, a high-speed chase with a twist that no one saw coming. Stay with us. We're back with journalist Neil Strauss and private investigator Jayden Brant. So, less than a month into their investigation of the missing 25-year-old aspiring actress Adea Shabani, they finally find her boyfriend, Chris Spots. So, what happens when police finally caught up with him?
So Chris was returning to Los Angeles from Colorado. Police located his Toyota Tacoma truck.
That was the truck we saw Adea in the back of?
Correct.
That same one that had pulled out in front of the house that everyone got wrong, but...
Yes.
Correct.
It was his truck. She just wasn't in the back. That truck. Same
Okay.
truck.
All right.
Yeah, so police located his truck, and he led them on a pursuit. And at the end of that pursuit, he pulled over and fatally shot himself.
He committed suicide.
Yes.
And not only, so this is where it's the saddest story because, you know, I thought maybe this secret, if he's the one who's responsible, was gone with him. So I did some research and I found out there was someone in the car with him. This person hasn't been named. I tracked them down. I talked to him. He said that here's what Chris was planning. Chris was planning on taking his own life. But before doing it, he wanted to go, he was an actor. He had a part in LA. He wanted to do an acting job and show the world what he could do as an actor. And then the pair of them, Chris and his friend, had 2 guns in the car. I just get the chills. I'm saying this gets so crazy. They had 2 guns. They had a rope and a tape recorder. And they're going to go confront Chris's father. Because Chris said they were prepared to tie up, torture Chris's father. Because Chris said his father had done it and his father knows where Adea is. And he was prepared to even kill his own father.
And what had his father done?
Well, what Chris believed and was telling his friend Chance and that his father was the one who'd done it. His father had a bad history and that Chris believed his father was responsible.
Responsible for?
Adea's disappearance.
Okay. And what happened to Adea? Did she turn up?
5 days after Chris committed suicide, Adea's body was located in a shallow grave about 45 minutes outside of Sacramento, California.
Again, I'm new to this, but it's like, from everything, there are 2 people who don't need to be gone. Even with the motives we have and what we know, there's no good reason.
Do we know if there was a connection between Chris and Adea's death?
What we can say is that. So here's what's wild is this is still being investigated as what happened, right? The podcast is literally ongoing in real time. So there's a lot of answers coming, and I'm trying to nail them all down before I present them. And literally 2 nights ago, I was on the phone with Chris's father for 2 hours. So I'm literally, like we're really in process right here. This isn't a cold case that we went back to. This is literally ongoing. So we're wrapping this up and we're nailing down the final things. That's what's so almost uncomfortable to even be on here talking about it.
Well, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah.
On the other hand, oftentimes on this show, we are doing autopsies of what happened. Right? It's looking back at what went wrong. Being in the middle of it, I understand all the questions. I had no idea that so much of the burden of solving the crimes in our communities is up to us.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that we don't know yet what happened to Adea. Obviously, her death is terrible and unfortunate. Chris's most likely is as well. And I try to put these pieces together in my own mind, and I pay you tribute for keeping it all straight and going one step beyond where normal law enforcement goes, because it opens our eyes to it. It's still an open case. Do you have hope that we will one day know the answer of what happened to Adea?
Yeah, I can tell you, because of the data we've recovered and picked up, that we're going to have a very, very clear idea of what happened. These things never make sense. It's interesting because both families are suffering, her family, Chris's family, and they really just want answers and the truth, whatever those may be. So it's really there is a burden on that. The police want to close an investigation or close a case, but a family wants just answers and closure, and that's what we're trying to get.
All right. Thank you very much for being here. You can catch up on Neil and Jayden's investigation by listening to their podcast, To Live and Die in LA. It's got new episodes on Thursday, so check it out. You can find it wherever you find your podcasts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on new videos to live the good life.